Hi, Miriam. Thank you so much for being the guest on our final episode of our podcast, Drip by Drip, Unveiling Fashion's Thirsty Truths. I am very excited that you're here today for the last episode because, at the one hand, we're finalizing this whole season number 2 of our podcast. And on the other hand, we're breaking with the cycle because all the past episodes of this season have been circling around case studies of different textile producing countries and looking at the actual situation of the workers, garment workers in the countries. And today we are looking at a different business model, which is a circular business model, which could inspire many others to follow suit and which could change the whole online retail market for the better and into something much more sustainable. So thank you very much for taking the time, Miriam. Would you be so kind to introduce yourself?
Of course. Yeah, thank you very much for your invitation. I feel very honored to be part of the last episode. I'm Miriam. I'm marketing communication manager at momox since 4 years. And since then, I take care of transparent communication about all our processes, of all our brands, and about all our sustainability achievements. And I try to convince daily even more people to choose secondhand.
Yeah, perfect. You already mentioned it now. Secondhand is the main market where the main sustainable choice we're talking about today. Would you mind explaining a bit what momox does and how it sets or how your business model is set apart to other online retailers?
Yes. So Momox Fashion is a brand of Momox, and Momox is one of Europe's largest e-commerce or re-commerce, like we call it, company, because we buy and sell secondhand books, media items, and fashion from individuals and sell it also to other individuals. So that's also how we differ already from other marketplaces where you can buy secondhand, because usually you have a direct contact to already the seller or buyer. But usually it's like a consumer to consumer business. But we are in the middle of it and we buy everything, store it, and then sell it. So actually our business model is to make also everything super easy and secure. So for sellers, we have a super easy and fast process to get rid of things. You can just type in, for example, for fashion, the gender category and brand, and directly you get a fixed price and you can send it in for free. And after a quality check, you get immediately the price. And for buyers, we have an online shop like you would know it from also fast fashion. So that offers a free shipping, also return possibility. We give inspiration. You have all the filters where you can filter for colors, for brands, and so on. So everything actually that you know from a normal online shop for fashion, and secure payment methods. Yes, with that, we want to make secondhand as easy as possible to be a real alternative for fast fashion.
Yeah, amazing. Actually, how we met, maybe to give a little introduction also to how this episode came together. A former colleague of yours got in touch with Drip by Drip, I think about 2 years ago. And you were looking for an organization to support with donations, and you were looking for someone who's like working in the field of water and textiles. So we were a really good fit. And since then, we've been collaborating and being really good partners. And we very much enjoy the collaboration with you too. And what we like to get into a bit more today is, in the past episodes, we asked all of the guests, obviously from NGOs in all sorts of countries of Southeast Asia, but also Ethiopia, who work somewhat related to the fashion and textile industry, what they would think if immediately the whole world would stop buying fashion. Because we know, or buying new items, because we know that we have enough produced in the world to fit all of us. So there's no necessary need for more production of fast fashion, but also sustainable fashion items, honestly. So how do you see the role of momox in this whole textile ecosystem globally?
I think so. First, I think it would not be directly a problem for us. It would if the production would stop. But I guess in the long run, at one point, it also would, because of course, in one point, we also need clothing to come back into the circle to also sell and buy them again. In general, I also don't see this as a solution. But I think a possible solution could be either to have fair production, of course, or secondhand like we do, to not have the need of maybe the huge amount of fast fashion that is developing so quickly. How I would position ourselves. So, of course, we are a profit-oriented organization. Of course, we make sure that we have a sustainable growth and that we have an efficient operation. But still, sustainability has been, since almost the beginning, deeply embedded in everything that we do. Of course, first of all, through our business model, we can encourage people to buy secondhand and to have a little bit more sustainable lifestyle by extending the life cycle of their products and to hopefully reduce waste. But also, we see ourselves as a driving force in the circular economy through communicate all the time that you should have a more conscious behavior to shop less, to shop secondhand. We also, in all our channels, we try to give recommendations and tips how to have a more sustainable lifestyle. So for us, I think we are somewhere the gap, or we try to fill the gap between economic success and environmental responsibility. We also try maybe to prove that there is a way to combine these two things, so that there is a way to be sustainable, but also to still be economically. I think that's what we try every day.
Yeah, it sounds like a big challenge, definitely, to combine those two. Since you mentioned the environmental impacts of fashion, when you got in touch with Drip by Drip, obviously you were interested in learning more about water or doing something in terms of water, the potential water footprint of also secondhand fashion. So one thing we did together in the last couple of months was we found a master's student who was diving into the topic very deeply to figure out what the actual water footprint of secondhand is. Because lots of big competitors of yours are communicating very interesting numbers, which apparently are not completely well calculated. So we thought a master's student could dive into it and we could figure out, is there actual like a big loss of water when you buy secondhand in comparison to buying new? Unfortunately, though, the main outcome was that it's hard to calculate and to be sure how much water is being saved. But can you share a bit more about your journey in terms of figuring out what the water impact of secondhand is and where you are at the moment with that?
Yeah, so I totally agree. So since a few years, we are already calculating all the CO2 impact. And I think that's also some numbers you can read everywhere, also in the fast fashion industry, but also in the secondhand industry. But there is still a lack of water communication in general. I think many people are actually still not aware how much water is used and how much water is polluted through the whole processes. So that's why, we are really happy to work with you together to have the possibility somehow to also communicate this to our consumers. Yes, and indeed, it's really hard to calculate because there is not really that number we can calculate with to really say secondhand saves water. Still, I think the project of the master student was really interesting to get a little bit deeper inside of this topic. We could find out, or I think some numbers we had and we calculated with was that 1 kilogram of cotton can require up to 10,000 liters of water. And I think that was also the baseline the master student calculated with, also together with some momox numbers. And in the end, she could find out that secondhand requires less water than a first-hand produced product. But in the end, it always is about the use of the consumer. How often it is used after it is bought, doesn't matter if secondhand or not. And it also really only has an influence if a secondhand item replaces a first-hand item. So, and that's also always our goal, and that's also what we always try to communicate. If you buy a secondhand item, but then still buy the same or maybe a similar one firsthand, then of course it doesn't save anything. It actually probably is an even, not doubled, but it's still more CO2 than you would have only bought the firsthand. So that's something that is really important that we also always try to make sure. And I think that's something we need to work further on because I think we can say it of course saves water because it doesn't need to be produced newly, but it needs to be replaced by a first-hand piece, and also it needs to be worn and it needs to be carried it needs to be washed correctly and so on and so forth. So I think that was again a big learning. Of course we knew, but still I think it was nice to have now the data to just to have this justified.
Yeah, what I thought was really interesting in the end was that she said it doesn't actually really matter how much water went into the producing part of the secondhand item, but the fact how often you wash it is more important for the overall water footprint of a secondhand piece. And that obviously is kind of equal probably also with a new bought item, so that the difference is not that big. I mean, we all know that it's better to buy secondhand, but then, again, if you buy a new piece additionally, then in the end you consume more water, obviously. So that was really interesting for us also to learn and to understand a bit better the whole calculation mechanism. But since you mentioned your customers now, I mean, secondhand shoppers, we also discussed this during the meeting because I asked you, because my inclination was always, or my assumption was that a secondhand shopper would generally buy much more conscious, much less and well-chosen items and then wear them as long as possible. But you gave me a very surprising answer. So could you share a bit with us about your actual customers and how their shopping behavior is at momox and maybe also besides momox?
Yes. So there definitely is like also a small group that is shopping at momox because of sustainability, and that's reason number one. But if we look at the whole customer base, we always see that actually price is the main driver. So we are doing surveys on a regular basis and always ask, hey, what is your main motivator? And we always come up that price is the main point why they would shop secondhand. And I think it totally makes sense because we also try to be an alternative to fast fashion, or I mean to firsthand, of course, in general, but also to fast fashion because that's people shop it because it's cheaper. And you can buy a lot of things maybe to the same time because your budget is allowing it. And we try to be an alternative for this. And because we can offer cheaper prices than you would find the same item new. So that's why people shop at us, to shop items that they maybe could not buy firsthand because it would be more expensive, but they still want to be stylish and want to be maybe unique in their style. And so that's always the main motivator. But still, secondly, there's always sustainability that comes up when we ask about their motivation, because I think also that's why they shop at momox and not then fast fashion, because I mean they could also shop fast fashion cheap, but they still go to momox fashion because there you have secondly then the nicer feeling after you bought something and a good feeling that you still did something better for the environment than shopping new.
Yeah, but do they shop less, or would you say they are still rather consumers that buy a lot of items?
I think we have both. So I think there's one half that definitely shops less, but there's also a part that, shops maybe not the same amount than they would shop firsthand, but they still like to shop, and that's why they come to us.
Yeah, get that. So you're a retailer. That means obviously you have to deal with clothes, but you are dealing with clothes that have been worn. So they might not have the exact quality that you need in order to be able to resell them to your customers. So can you share a bit behind the scenes? How, like, what sort of items do you get? In what sort of condition do they come? Or how many percentages of those are in a condition which you cannot resell, and what do you do with those items to better understand how the business of secondhand online retailing works?
So yeah, we already choose when a customer tries to sell something to us, then we already kind of categorize and sort out. So we do not buy everything. So we look already in the first step when the customer is telling which category he wants to sell. So let's say a bag or a t-shirt, and also the brand. So in the first step, you can already not sell any brand to us. So with that already, we make sure that we do not buy every, let's say, ultra fast fashion brand, because we know the quality is so bad. Often you cannot wear it super often. So we already make sure that we do not buy those stuff, because we know it's not good enough so that we could resell it. There are some categories we would buy maybe from fast fashion brands, like coats or some things where we know, okay, that has sometimes a better quality and we would still like to see it if it's still in a good shape. But with that first step, we already say sometimes, we cannot buy specific brands.
Can you give an example?
So I think, for example, we still have in our brand cluster brands like H&M, so like fast fashion brands like this, where we would buy, I'm not sure how we are doing it right now specifically, but where, let's say, we would buy a coat, but maybe not a top. But I think we definitely don't have Shein in our brand cluster. So all of this ultra fast fashion, we do not buy anything. I think, of course, it's also important to give those articles a second life at least. But for us, I think in our experience, we just made sure that if we would get it in our warehouses and we would check it and we know we need to reject it anyway, then the process is too long with the shipment and resending it back. And so it just doesn't make sense. I would say we have brands like H&M, but our main focus is more higher quality brands like, let's say, Tommy Hilfiger or Ralph Lauren, where we know there is a good quality and we are sure it can have not maybe only 2 lives, but maybe even more. But we know the quality is at least at a specific level.
Interesting. So that basically proves that even from your experience, you can tell that there's a difference in quality when it comes to different brands, which is obviously always the assumption that ultra fast fashion brands are not predestined to be resold often, so shouldn't be purchased in the beginning, probably. So very interesting. But since you're an online retailer, you mentioned before that you also offer free returns. Do you have the same issues with returns that we know from bigger, like general online retailers such as Asos or Zalando? Do you face the same issues?
Yes, definitely. So returns are also a challenge for us. I think if we compare it with fast fashion brands, we are still lower. We still have a lower quote of returns, so that we are happy about. And maybe that's also that you can see that our customers are a bit more conscious, at least, than if they would shop at fast fashion brands. So that's a good thing. But still, of course, returns are a challenge. Not only because they cause CO2, but also they mean extra effort and cost for us, of course, because every return that we receive, we check again and we definitely make sure that it comes back to the circle. So we always check it again if maybe it was worn, that something happened maybe on the way, but usually it's still okay and we give it back to Momox Fashion where then someone else can buy it. So every return means, a lot of effort. So we are constantly, of course, working on reducing return rates through improvements across the whole customer journey. So that means that we for example, try to optimize the product information so that we make even better pictures, give even more details about maybe really little stains maybe that are okay for us. So we always categorize an item if it's like really like new, maybe it wasn't even worn once, or if it has maybe little issues where we are sure it can be still worn. But I mean, maybe you can see that it was worn a few times. So we try to optimize all this information about the product. We also always give the measurements of an item. We try now new things also to make it even better, so that the customer already can make the right choices upfront before the sale, and then hopefully doesn't need to send it back. But also in the communication, we always, of course, try to communicate that every return causes CO2 emissions, but still there is definitely the need to raise more awareness for it and to educate the customers and to make it more conscious. But despite returns are bad for the environment and bad for our business in the end, we want to make sure that secondhand remains a sustainable alternative and want to continue to accept returns, because I think that's also a huge USP that you have if you buy something from momox Fashion and not maybe from another marketplace where you cannot return, and then you have it, and if it doesn't fit, and it can happen that it doesn't fit, we all know it. So we want to make sure to give the opportunity to send it back. So we rather work on optimizing all the information and to make the customer more aware where they can find the information and to make the right decisions, rather than would say we stop accepting returns, because we think it's really important to be actually a real alternative.
Yeah, actually, I think that's one of the biggest USPs you have at momox, that you have the opportunity to buy like at any other online retailer, but it is secondhand fashion. So you're making a conscious choice, but at the same time, you're kind of getting the same service as buying at Zalando or Asos or any other competitor of theirs. So I think that's a huge USP. But the more conscious shoppers, they know about momox, but still a lot of people who know that fast fashion is not the best opportunity or not the best alternative, whereas secondhand is the better one, are still hesitant to buy online, I guess, because secondhand is typically something you do not buy online, but actually in a proper shop where you can go thrift shopping. So what would you say to convince these customers to try it out, to buy secondhand online at momox? Like what's your advantage, or what would you say to them to convince them to do that?
So like we just talked about, the returns are definitely one of the biggest USPs you can have, because I think also some people, I mean, we live in Berlin. We have also several thrift shops around the corner. But if you go maybe to the countryside, you have a lack of thrift shops.
True.
So that could be, of course, a good alternative. And you can send it back. So that's, of course, a really good thing. And also, I think they just don't know also that you have with momox Fashion, but also, of course, other secondhand online shops, the real shopping experience like you would have for first-hand shops, like we already said in the beginning, so that you expect the same convenience, reliability, securement that you have as if you would shop at a first-hand online shop. Of course, returns are a big thing, but I also think we try since a few years to really give also inspiration, maybe even show that we also have the latest trends that you maybe see on the Fashion Week. We also have in shop because they were already trends 10 years ago. So they are already in some houses and people sell it now. So you can also find these things. I think that's super nice to see that actually you don't have to buy new to get even the trendy items. You can also buy secondhand. I think that's a huge advantage also. And also what we see, which is also one of the biggest USPs, is the quality and authenticity. So we make sure that everything is quality checked. It's not smelly. It doesn't have big stains. It's definitely not a fake. And I think also people still have maybe this bad image from maybe some thrift stores where you go and you have this a little bit smell secondhand in your nose. I mean, I really like it. I also like to go through thrift shops, and I think it just belongs to it. But I think for some people, They have this bad image about like smelly secondhand items, especially in fashion. And we try to remove this bad image of secondhand and to say, hey, it's like new. Some items really you can wear them for so many times, and if they are washed correctly and so on, then you do not really see that they weren't already once. I think this altogether needs to be communicated more and more to convince everyone.
Yeah, totally. And what do you think could help momox to take the macro perspective a little bit more now, in terms of policy, for example, or other things that legislation could do to support your business model and to support people in making the better choice and buying at momox instead of Zalando or instead of H&M? Do you have ideas of what could really be beneficial for your business model and for the secondhand movement in total?
I think in general, the biggest issue, like I already said, what is the biggest motivator of secondhand fashion for our customers, and I think it's in general, is the price. So everyone who wants to shop secondhand wants also cheaper prices, because otherwise they could also buy it new. Then you don't have to fear that it's maybe that it maybe has stains or anything, that maybe the quality is not as good as new anymore. So and to make this sure that we actually can compete with fast fashion, I think with ultra fast fashion we cannot compete anymore because it's so cheap sometimes. But I think we need some regulation that it keeps that way, that we actually can compete with it, and that it can be also price-wise a real alternative for fast fashion. And we were looking at France the last month a lot, because we also have our second biggest market is for secondhand fashion is France. And they are actually working right now on a new regulation, which is super interesting, I think, for ultra fast fashion. So they are thinking about a regulation where they would ban advertising from ultra fast fashion brands, where they would maybe give a penalty per garment for products that have a high ecological footprint, and just to make it brands, ultra fast fashion brands, harder to sell that much. And regulation like this would, of course, help people to rethink their buying and to maybe then prefer secondhand instead of ultra fast fashion. Yeah,
true. So this new law, would it mean that, because you mentioned that it would be there would be some sort of a fine for ultra fast fashion items, does that mean the price of the item in the respective country would be higher, or that the producer has to pay some sort of a fine for the number of items they are putting into the French market?
I think it's not quite clear yet. I think that's why. So these are like the ideas how they want to run it, but I think it's not quite clear how it will be really then implemented. I think it could go both ways. I'm not sure, but I think it's a good sign that they want to move forward. That they also, I think, ask for more transparent information where the products are from, give detailed product passes, that would also help us in the end to have a full information about the product, because we never know actually what item we have. We know the brand and we see, okay, it's a t-shirt, but we don't have more. So that would be helpful in general. Yes, in general, it's a really good step forward. And I think we will see the coming year how they can make it to implement it.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I'm going to follow that now. Sounds super interesting. Since you mentioned a different country now, one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, because in the past episodes of this season, we have always asked the guest in the current episode if they have a question for the next guest of the next episode. And the last episode was with Nitya. She was working for an NGO in Indonesia. And I asked her what her question would be for momox, because I already knew you're going to be my next guest. And she had a very interesting question that I would like to raise to you. She was asking how sustainable business models and retailers in the global north, so Germany, Europe, etc., how they can go beyond just promoting conscious shopping behavior in the global north and actually support producing factories and even garment workers in the global south. Do you have an idea how momox can not only have an impact here in Germany, which is obviously already fantastic, but how momox could also have a positive impact for the producers and the workers in the global south?
Yeah, really a complex question, I think.
Very much.
Yeah, really challenging issue. So especially for us as a circular fashion business, because like I also already, I think said, we don't have a direct influence on the production processes. So we really only buy things that are already somewhere in Germany or France sitting, and buy this. And also we have a huge lack of transparency in general, what I also just said, what the articles are from. So I think, and that's also maybe one of the main obstacles we have, not only we have, but also everyone else, that there is a lack of transparency in the global fashion supply chains. So that there is no universal product passport or reliable tracking system that can tell us where an item was made, and what is in there and so on. So we usually don't have access to all this information. And I think that would be a good first step. But I also think that is not possible, again, without a regulation. We would really, I think, like to support also these countries, but without having directly influence in the production process. There's not really a way to start. And I think, why also maybe, not usually now companies start with the promoting conscious consumption is because that's the thing we can do now, where we can start, because in the end consumer demand drives the production. And
absolutely,
with every secondhand item we sell, we try that we reduce the demand for new products, and we also hope that this in the end affects the less production. It would be great to see more information, more about producer information from brands, and I think that would be a great first step.
Yeah, I was also when I got the question, that was also my first idea, that by giving more sustainable options in the European markets to the consumers, this might, in with some delay, obviously, but it might have some impact on the demand, which then obviously drives production, as you said. So maybe this could be a first step in order to support this like really fast-paced production cycles that the mainly female garment workers are working in the global south, and which obviously is a huge issue. So I think momox is definitely taking a step in that direction. So maybe this is the one thing that is easier for us to do here, for sure. And I mean, partnering with Drip by Drip is another good step because you're obviously supporting our mission, and we're trying to do our best to support a bit the Global South organizations that are supporting the female garment workers. So in the end, this is also another support. So Miriam, let's look.
That's why we're super happy to work with you guys.
Yeah, same, vice versa. Maybe let's look into the future of the secondhand market also. Are there any innovations or new developments that, since you are in the middle of this market, that you see that will shape the future of secondhand, and that has a really good potential of increasing the whole impact of the secondhand movement?
Yes, so I think, like for every other business as well, AI, of course, is a very powerful tool also for us in the future to make even better decisions. So we already use it now to evaluate products better. Just before a few years, it was like that we really had manually check every item, and like we had to look at it and say, okay, it's the color yellow. And then we typed in yellow. So there was a smooth process, but still, of course, it was really manual work. And now we already can use AI for these kind of things, so that it helps categorize items, and that we can just be even more efficient and can even buy more secondhand items and can give more items a second chance. Also, we already introduced just actually a few weeks ago a fourth step in our buying process. So if you would sell now a product, you do not only type in gender, category and brand, but there is an optional fourth step where you are asked to do a picture, and our AI can now see if this is a fit or a color or a pattern that is very much sold on momox fashion on our outbound site. And then we can give an even higher price because we know it's a really good pattern, that it's like, let's say dots are a really big thing right now. So we would give you more money. So because we also know that it doesn't lie too many months in our warehouse, and we are confident that we can sell it faster. So that helps us also to make even better decisions, to buy maybe even better trend articles out now. Also, like I also already said, that it's a good thing that you can buy them secondhand. So yeah, it just helps us to make better, efficient decisions, to make more efficient processes. Yes, so yeah, I guess AI will have a lot of more interesting tools in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. When you were talking, I was just thinking this could be a fantastic way to get people to buy, even when they buy new, to get them to buy more conscious items. If you tell them, look, the conscious item is a bit more expensive because it may be organic cotton, or it may be a bigger brand or whatever. The price is higher, but once you wore it a few times and you don't like it that much anymore, you can resell it at momox, and you're going to get a good price for it. So in the end, the whole cost you had for the item is not that high. You made a very conscious new choice, and at the same time, you resold it. So you even had a second very conscious choice by putting it back into the market. So this whole cycle maybe could be the future for people to in general change their shopping behavior to a more conscious model. Maybe that's something that we all need to understand.
Yeah, exactly. I think also, that's what we also, of course, always try to communicate, because also we want, of course, our outbound customers to, again, be inbound customers and to sell their things again. I think it can also our business model. I mean, it's a circle, and it can be also a circle for our consumers. If you buy something secondhand and then maybe you only wear it 3 times because, I don't know, maybe it wasn't the right fit or the right color for you, you can again resell it and give it back to the circle. And I think that's what we continue to communicate, to convince everyone to do this.
Be part of the sharing economy.
Yes, that would be great.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much, Miriam. We're already at the end with our time. We're already past the 30 minutes, but this talk was really interesting and enlightening. Thank you so much for taking the time, for being our final guest on the final episode of the season. I wish you a wonderful day, and I'm looking forward to even more collaborations with you. Thank you.
Me too. Thank you so much.